Coming up on this episode of the Hockey Nuts, Steve and I get you caught up with all the action in the Stanley Cup Final. We'll break down both games that have been played so far. We'll also take a look at the playoffs in the American Hockey League, the ECHL, and the Memorial Cup Tournament. We'll have all this, plus our picks of the week, coming up next. This is the Hockey Nuts Podcast, Season 1, Episode 42, recorded on Friday, June 2nd, 2017. NHL Stanley Cup Final, Games 1 and 2.
Shut up and sit down.
Hello and welcome to episode 42 of the Hockey Nuts Podcast. My name is Wayne. I'm here with Steve. How's it going today, Steve?
It's going great, Wayne. Good to be with you once again. Stanley Cup going on right now as we speak.
It sure is. It's been about 10 days since we last did our show, and that's mostly due to work commitments that both Steve and I had that we couldn't get it done on our normal Wednesday night. Here we are. It's Friday night, and we are here and ready to talk hockey. And, of course, as of right now, Friday night, we have completed 2 Stanley Cup games. And, in fact, even though it has been 10 days since we've done the podcast, Steve, there's only been 3 games played in the NHL. So,
yeah.
But there's plenty to talk about in those 3 games. I mean, there were 3 big games. 2 Stanley Cup Final games and the Game 7 from the Eastern Conference Final are the games that we need to discuss tonight. So we'll get you caught up on all that. Also, the AHL is also in the middle of their Calder Cup Final, so we got to get you caught up there. Vegas is in the headlines again, so we'll tell you why. And the offseason transaction season is fast approaching, and we're sensing that teams are getting itchy to get their offseason activities underway. I've seen an uptick in activity lately, so we'll get you caught up with that. But before we get going, let's remind you that you can download our show anywhere you can find podcasts, such as iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, iHeartRadio, TuneIn Radio, Google Play Music, Player.fm, and, of course, any other podcast app that you may be using. You can also listen to our show right on our website at thehockeynuts.com. You can also listen to it at the hockeywriters.com website, which is a website that basically they provide all kinds of hockey content, a lot of articles, and they have a podcast page that basically takes a bunch of hockey-related podcasts and puts them all in one location for you to listen to. So it's a great site to go to. We also live stream the recording of our podcast, and it's just simply the raw recording that we live stream right on our Facebook page at facebook.com/thehockeynuts. So, and there are many ways you can support the show. If you can't do it financially, you can basically do it by sharing the show with everyone that you know that is a hockey fan, particularly if you know that they listen to podcasts. If you have iTunes on your computer or device, we would greatly appreciate if you subscribe to our show there. It helps us rise the rankings there and helps us get more notice, get more eyeballs the higher up the rankings you are. So, of course, if you review us and rate and review the show on iTunes, it will also help us get noticed more there. And, of course, we encourage you to get involved with the show. There's many ways you can get a hold of us. Probably the best way would be to tweet us. I'm at Wayne Halley 9. Steve is sball504man. You can email the show directly at feedback@thehockeynuts.com. And you can visit us through our Facebook page at facebook.com/thehockeynuts. And you can reach us through our YouTube channel. Shortcut to that is thehockeynuts.com/YouTube. And other than that, there's a bunch of there's actually financial way you can support our show. Of course, the show is a labor of love for us, but we do in fact pay out of pocket to produce the show a little bit each month, and we have ways that you can help us with that. We have affiliate links right on our website. We have affiliations with Amazon and HockeyMonkey.com. And if you were to go to our website, click on the affiliate links, and those links will be directed, or will direct you to those websites. And then any purchases you make after that will be will produce a little bit of a kickback that goes back to us. And of course, as always, you don't pay anything extra for everything you do. Now, going to those using those affiliate links, the clicking on the link only works for a couple of days. So so it's not one of those you click it once and you're done and we'll forever get money. You do have to. If we appreciate if you just go through the affiliate link each time you go to either Amazon or Hockey Monkey, and that would we would greatly appreciate it, and we do appreciate those who've done it in the past. So we thank all of those who have done so. So all right, let's get enough with the business talk. Let's get on with talking about the hockey.
Yes, sir.
So the first thing we need to do is we need to wrap up the conference final. When we last recorded, the Western Conference had been wrapped up, and of course Nashville moves on to the Stanley Cup Final. But Game 7 had yet to be played when we last met, so we need to talk about Game 7 on that one. And what a doozy of a game that was.
Just on is Crosby. Sheary waits for it. Goes cross rink. It goes to Schultz. Now to Crosby. Too hard. Off the boards, but he finds it. Crosby of the Penguins. Left wing circle over to Kunitz. Shot. Score! Chris Kunitz wins it for the Pittsburgh Penguins as Crosby sets him up. And ladies and gentlemen, Elvis has just left the building. Kunitz with a game winner, his second of the night. And the Penguins are going on to play the Nashville Predators. And you know what? You can spit shine your shoes, baby. The Penguins are going to go dancing with Lord Stanley once again.
That was one heck of a hockey game.
It sure was.
Let me tell you.
Let me tell you what I was doing that night. I had a buddy of mine from high school, a guy I played hockey with in high school, was in town on business. And he was only in town that night. He was in Lynchburg, Virginia on business, and he had been driving back to Raleigh in order to catch a plane Friday morning. So he got into town Thursday night. So him and I agreed to meet to catch up a little bit because neither one of us had seen each other in years. So we basically caught up over a few beers in Game 7. So I didn't watch the game focus because I was chit-chatting with him, but once it got to overtime, we pretty much had started to wind down our evening, and we were focused more on watching the game. So we did watch the second overtime. Actually, was the one we were in there, and I think we ended up closing the place down. I think there was only one other party at the restaurant we were at when we left there.
That's always fun.
Yeah.
Whole time, you just let people know, hey, I'm in because I'm a hockey fan,
Right.
And you got to keep the TV on.
And they see, the workers see that. They were starting to clean up around us. And the other party was there to watch the game too. So
yeah.
So
that's great.
They just let us do our thing, and they were doing their thing, and we got to see a great game. But wow, what a game that was!
Oh, that was might have been the game of the playoffs.
Yep.
One of them, anyways. I'll tell you that.
I was disappointed that Anderson didn't get the win on that one, but I was hoping that Ottawa would steal that game because
I was too.
It could have gone either way. That's what it comes down to. Ottawa ended up forcing overtime and
got their chances.
In overtime, anything can happen, and they certainly did get their chances. So I don't know what more else there is to talk about that. It was over a week ago, and I know we're itching to talk about the Stanley Cup Final, but
the only thing that jumps out at me, Wayne, is had Ottawa won that game, and that was a very, very possible thing. They could have won that game.
They certainly could.
They can't say, oh, God, we didn't have a chance to win. They did have chances to win that game and couldn't capitalize. Had they won that game, it would be a totally different Stanley Cup right now.
Sure would.
It
sure would, and I think, my opinion. I think Nashville would be up 2-0 if it had, but that's just my opinion.
Yeah.
We'll never know what
right.
ultimately would happen, but I think the injuries were beginning to in particular to Erik Karlsson, were beginning to take its toll on the Senators.
Right.
Because I think, I think we'll be talking about it later in the show notes. There were a number of injuries coming from the Senators after after they got eliminated. That's when you find out about all the injuries, and there were several players that were hurting. But anyway, Pittsburgh moves on, and now we have Pittsburgh and Nashville in the Stanley Cup Final. Nashville, it's the first time ever for them getting as far as they have. Yeah. And, of course, Pittsburgh is the defending Stanley Cup champion. So it's the ultimate no playoff experience versus all the playoff experience in the world type of series.
Yeah.
And we have played 2 games so far, and let's just go ahead and break them down game by game. Let's start with game 1.
Nudged across away from Dumoulin and carried up by Kessel. Kessel brings it back along, got it to Kunin. Button hooks there, and dodges it on back now to Hainsey. Hainsey dropped it back in deep, and around it comes now, and unable to step to the front was Bonino because he was tied up defensively by Gaudreau. Flopped on back once again. Hainsey popped one off Yossi that bounces on back, and another shift change with under 3.5 to go. Pass comes across now to Yossi. Tried to fly it on, but could not. Pitched on back and carried in now by Gensel. He scores!
Goal number 10 of the playoffs for Jake Gensel. And the first shot on Pecorine in forever. Perfectly placed from Jake Gensel. What a pass from Matt Cullen. And the first shot on goal for the Pittsburgh Penguins in 37 minutes and 9 seconds. Gensel goes top shelf.
Before he came on the ice, Mike Sullivan said, is somebody on this team going to get a puck on goal? They just did.
What were your initial thoughts in that game?
Well, I was surprised. I really was surprised how the Penguins were able to rattle Pecorine. It's his first time playing in a Stanley Cup, and there's a lot of things you can give the guy for Nashville's first time there and everything, but they were able to really. He did not play well. I didn't think he played well. I thought the Predators should have won that game. That's number 2. I'm not blaming Pecorine for the loss. You're going to have games like that, but my feeling is it should be 1-1 right now, and he just didn't.
I felt that Nashville carried the play for 45 minutes of that game. Really, the only part of the game that I felt that Pittsburgh was carrying the play was about the last, probably from about the time that the Nashville goal was waved off until the end of the first. It was all Pittsburgh, which is roughly 10 minutes worth of time.
Right.
That happened roughly halfway through the first period. Second period was all Nashville. Up until Nashville got their goal waved off in the first, it was all Nashville. Third period was all Nashville until until Gensel scored, and then it was all Pittsburgh then on. So it was really for about 10 minutes in the first, about 5 minutes in the third. That's it. The rest of the game was all Nashville.
Yeah.
I mean, Pittsburgh didn't even have any shots on net in the second period.
Yeah, I saw that. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah, they got outshot 9-0 in the second period.
They went 37 minutes without a shot.
Without a shot on goal. Yep.
37 minutes. Including
the middle 20, yeah.
And they only had 12 shots on goal the whole game.
Yep.
So Nashville should have won that game. It just, and here's the thing. I am a Metropolitan Division guy. My team is there. So I know these teams very well over the years as I've become a hockey fan. And I've watched us go into Pittsburgh for years. Back when they had the Igloo, the same kind of thing. They can score goals in bunches quickly.
Yep.
I'm talking about the Sidney Crosby era. Yeah. Before that, I'm not, but since Sidney Crosby, they can score goals in bunches. They can come along and put 2 or 3 goals in quick amount of time. It happens all the time. In fact, it happens frequently if you watch the Penguins play. So you have to know that. You have to be aware that they are a very dangerous team, and momentum swings for them it's magnified with them, it seems.
Yep.
Versus other teams who may get a momentum swing, they get a power play goal, and they are able to get the puck in the end again and really make a go at trying to get another goal. Pittsburgh can score 3 goals. They can get a power play goal and there's a breakaway and a goal, and that's how they are.
Yeah. But they can also give up 3 very quickly too.
They have the mental lapses. That's correct.
Yep.
I agree. And that's the only reason why they haven't really dominated the NHL for the last several years.
But they were and it came to me in that first game, there were several turning points in that game where the momentum swung back and forth from Nashville to Pittsburgh. And of course, the first one, and I want to get your opinion on this, on the goal that was waved off in the first period, Subban's goal.
Oh yeah.
Nashville was dominating the play up until that point. They score a goal, or Subban scores a goal, and then they look at the coach's challenge. They use Pittsburgh used the coach's challenge on that one. They look at it, and they deemed that, and I can't remember who it was that ended up being offside. But of course, and I watched the replay. I've seen it many times since then, and I really don't agree with that call. The way it was made. I don't know what your opinion was. Yes, he was probably offside, but the way the rule is written, or the way replay is supposed to work, is you have your call on the ice, which in this case was a goal. There has to be conclusive evidence in order to overturn that call. You got to be 100% sure.
Right.
Was I 100% sure that he didn't have his skate on the ice when that pass came over the blue line?
Right.
I can't say that.
Right.
Because the best angle that they kept showing was, a zoomed in angle, and it was very grainy, where you could it looked like his foot might have been in the air, but you're not 100% sure that it was.
Right.
And if that's the case, then the goal is supposed to stand.
Right.
Unless they know without a shadow of a doubt that his foot was up.
Right.
And I could be wrong, but I believe the Bruins back in the first round lost a goal in a very similar play. And in that case, I believe it was Ottawa that had scored the goal. The Bruins challenged it. It looked offside to me, but it wasn't, 100%. But they allowed the goal to stand in that case.
Right.
And it was almost the same type of play. So, the inconsistency is so damn frustrating. And I know the announcers were talking about it. Man, Milbury was really tearing into the refs. I think during Game 2, he was really ripping into them. It's just, to me, that particular play, it was not, to me, it wasn't 100% conclusive. So you have to allow the goal to stand. But for whatever reason, they decided, well, yeah, it looks like because there's a shadow there, it looks like his skate is up.
Right.
He's offside. And it probably was the right call, but the way the rule is written, it has to be, without a shadow of a doubt, conclusive evidence. And I don't buy that it was absolutely 100% conclusive. So that's my stance on that.
I agree with you. Here's my feelings. It should be that way every single time. And that offsides rule sometimes going to come to bite you in the rear end. If you're a fan of hockey, you're gonna lose on that sometimes when you really feel you should win. That's how it's turning out. It is so minusculely close.
Yeah.
What they're doing and trying to get the right camera angle and make definitive decisions on that. And if I was a referee, I'd. But in the Stanley Cup, I mean, and especially with the parity in the league, the way things are, the quality of the athletes that are playing the game now, the way the game goes. If you make a mistake on a call like that, it could cost a team dearly. This happened to be Game 1, right?
Yeah.
But it could be Game 5 and a pivotal game. And I don't know. There's a lot riding on it. And so I agree with you. It should be a 100% beyond a shadow of a doubt. I see it. I can tell that was an offsides or that was not an offsides. It can't be guesswork on it.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know. It begs do they have different views in Toronto that we never see as fans? You know what I'm saying? Like maybe they got another angle, or maybe there was a camera from the ceiling or something where they could tell that it was a conclusive thing. And we're speculating.
I believe there are cameras mounted either inside the boards or just above the boards behind the glass, right on the lines, that we may not be able to see. I don't think I've seen footage from that. But the NHL, to defend their referees,
right,
if they know their referees are right, they will release that video. I've seen them release that video before. I have not seen that in this case. So they may have blown the call and the NHL's burying the evidence.
Yeah.
That could be too.
Well,
And I also have a problem with the rule itself anyway. If you're going to have this offside rule overturning goals, fine. Do this offside replay. Great. I'm okay with that.
Mm-hmm.
But let's amend it here a little bit, because in this particular case, the goal happened probably, 30 seconds after they crossed the line? And at one point, Ron Hainsey of the Penguins had the puck, had possession of the puck on his stick, went to make a play out of the zone. Nashville intercepted the pass or the dump or whatever he was trying to do with it and kept the puck in the zone, and that's when they went in and scored. Why don't they rewrite this rule so that if the team in the defending zone gains possession of the puck and they, for whatever reason failed to get it out of the zone, oh well, too bad. You had your chance. You got the puck back. You had your chance to get it out. You didn't. The goal stands.
Oh yeah, that's a good point, Wayne.
Instead of because now once he's offside, as long as that puck stays in the zone, no matter what happens, Pittsburgh could get the puck and play keep away for 10 minutes.
Sure.
And as long as the puck doesn't come out of the zone, if Nashville scores, it won't count, even if it's 10 minutes later.
That's a great point. That's a great point.
I mean, the way the rule is, I think they should amend it so that once the team, the defending team, has clear possession of the puck, and in this case, Ron Hainsey had clear possession of the puck. He had it for a good 2 seconds on his stick before Nashville got the puck back. Then that whole thing is nullified, and whatever happens after that stands. Period.
Right.
They should at least do that much.
Right. That's a great point.
So anyway, I don't know if that's something that they will do. Probably not, because then you're going to have to replay whether or not it just gets confusing and complicated. But that's just my 2 cents. I just don't think that. And the other problem I have is I've noticed the linesmen, and of course I see it as a referee and a longtime player, on these close calls, they're waving it off just because, oh yeah, it's really close. I better not blow this dead. We should just let it go, and then we can overturn it and replay if we need to. So they're starting to use the instant replay as a crutch.
Mm-hmm. I got to say this, Wayne.
To fix their mistakes.
I think the officials in the NHL, of all of the major sports, they have a tough job.
They do.
But I think they do a great job. I think I've watched so much of this replay stuff and in the NFL, and you see all kinds of sport, but I think the NHL has it tough, and I think they do a great job. I think the referees that call the game, the linesmen, everybody in the NHL all together, especially the review room in Toronto, I think they get it right most of the time. And
they do. They do, but it's just the way it's carried out. I just hate to see teams get screwed on a case like this, because I think ultimately that was the first major turning point in the game, was this non-goal, because Pittsburgh gained the momentum, they carried the play, the crowd got into it after that, and that's when Pittsburgh went 1, 2, 3 goals up on Nashville and basically put them back on their heels. And before you knew it, Nashville's down 3-0 in that game. Yeah. And then they had to fight and scratch and claw to get back into the game and tie it back up. So yeah. And then of course late in the game, Gensel gets his goal to bring them up 4-3, and then they got the empty netter to seal the game. So. But yeah, that was my major issue with that goal that was waved off. Is I felt the call. In fact, the announcers even said, "I think this goal is going to count." He even said it. I think it was Eddie Olczyk that was doing the color in that game. But yeah. So anyway, but yeah, ultimately what ends up happening though is Nashville gets their goal turned away. And then right after that, or not right after, but a few minutes later, the 2 penalties that Nashville got to put them down 5-on-3, and then which led ultimately to the Pittsburgh's first goal. I thought the referees blew those calls, both of them, bad. One was that the guy who fell down in front of the net. Who was the guy that hit him that got the penalty? It was it was Hornquist for the Penguins that went down in front of the net there. He wasn't even touched. I don't know if you saw the replay on that.
No,
but he went down in front of the net. He wasn't even touched. He went down like he got interfered with. But I've watched that replay over and over and over, and the player, the Nashville player that got the penalty didn't even touch him, and he went down. And then 2 seconds after that, over in the corner, Trevor Daley gets cross-checked by who was it that hit him now? I don't even have the I don't have it up. But anyway, he gets cross-checked, and he went down like he got shot, and it was just a little, yeah, it was a cross-check. You definitely got to call that as a cross-check, but boy, did he go down easy. Yeah, he went down easy. I've seen harder checks from 12-year-olds, but so that put Nashville down 5-on-3. Pittsburgh gets their first goal, and then soon after that they go up 2-0, and then right at the end of the third they go up 3-0, and
at the end of the
first,
end of the first period.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then in the second period, not much happened. Nashville got 1 goal, make it 3-1, and then in the third period it got crazy.
Yeah.
Nashville came storming back, tied the game 3-3, and then with about 6-something left, Gensel gets the go-ahead goal, and then of course they got the empty netter.
That was it
to seal the game. Yep.
If you're in Pittsburgh, if you're playing that team right now during the Sidney Crosby era, just momentum swings are critical, and you have to. And I'm saying this as a Rangers fan. We beat the Penguins twice in the last 3 or 4 years. And during Alain Vigneault's term, we beat the Penguins twice in the playoffs. Okay, so you have to manage momentum swings with that team. They're going to happen. They're going to get those momentum swings, and you have to be able to stop the bleeding and get it going again. And that's just that. If Nashville doesn't do that, they not only will they lose the Stanley Cup, they could lose a game in Nashville. And it's you have to stop that team, and that's just how it is. And with Kessel, even more so, he has a tremendous positive will to score. He's deadly. He's one of them. But
he sure is.
You got Crosby. Then here comes Phil Kessel. So
But yeah, as far as you mentioned Pekka Rinne earlier, I felt that of the 4 goals that he let up, he should have had 2 of them. He should have had the first goal. He should have had the fourth goal.
I agree. The first goal, without question.
The middle 2, he didn't really have a chance on those. But
I think it was the first goal.
The first goal was the one he kind of reached out for it with his glove, and it kind of went off the bottom of his glove, went in the net.
I seen that one.
The fourth goal was the one that went up over his shoulder. That if he'd have been out 1 step further out, his angle would have cut it down enough that he would have been able to get it. That was the Gensel go-ahead goal. He probably should have had that one too. And the other 2, there was no chance he was going to get those. Those were just blown coverage by the defenseman and left players all alone. And they, one of them went off the Nashville defenseman, which is kind of unfortunate too. So one of those other 2 goals, but there was no way he was going to stop that one. It was a shot that he saved. He kicked it out. It came from his left. He kicked it out to his right, but he kicked it right into his defenseman's leg.
Right.
And bounced off the leg and went in the net. He wouldn't have been able to reach it. So yeah, Rinne struggled mightily in that first game. All right. So Pittsburgh wins game 1, 5-3. Let's talk about game 2.
Well, maybe even Wilson's going to get credit. It looked like it went off of his stick. Then Fiddler's skate. And then Pekka Rinne. But Kessel got it to the front of the net. And there's Austin Watson, the reaction from him. And the Penguins with a 2-goal lead.
And Matt Cullen started it all off with a strong play at the defensive blue line of the Penguins.
Malkin in a 2-on-1 with Kessel. Yossi is back. Malkin a shot. He scores!
Trying to slow this game down if you're the Nashville Predators. Odd man situations. Sissons gets beat. Malkin knows it's a 2-on-1. Get the puck to the net. And he goes top cheese on Pekka Rinne.
That one, pretty much in my mind, was all Pittsburgh for the most part.
Yeah, that was a totally different game.
Yeah.
And Pittsburgh really never even had to worry. They had that game. I saw the score 2-0, and I was like, God, doesn't look like Nashville's got a chance.
Yeah, that game was tied 1-1 after one. Actually, Nashville went out in front 1-0 in that game.
Oh, I'm thinking of the other game. I'm thinking of game one. I'm sorry.
But it was about 3.5 minutes later, Gensel tied the game. So the first period ends with a 1-1 score. Second period, there's no goals. Third period, Gensel gets his third goal of the Stanley Cup Final and his 12th of the playoffs. So he's become quite a story. Just 10 seconds into the third, Pittsburgh went up 2-1. And then just 3 minutes later, Scott Wilson gets a goal to make it 3-1. And then 15 seconds after that, Malkin gets a goal to make it 4-1. Now, you were talking about how Pittsburgh can pile up goals in a hurry. There's a great example right there.
Yep.
They go into the third tied 1-1, and by the 3:28 mark of the third period, Pittsburgh's up 4-1. And then you just never look back after that. So, that game essentially went all Pittsburgh. And, of course, at the end of the game, you had the nastiness where Nashville just wanted to send a message, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
That game... Well, that game was actually could have gone either way up until the beginning of the third period. Third period was all Pittsburgh. And my initial impression of that third period, because the first two periods were very even, the game could have gone either way. But the third period, it was as if Pittsburgh's playoff experience just took over, and they were like, okay, we're going to win this game, and they came out bang, 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 just like that. They're up 4-1, and that was it. That was it.
Right. Well, listen, it was another game where the momentum swings happen, and Nashville is going home down 2-0.
Yep.
So they just didn't manage. It's not like they're not going home to an arena where they win 50%, or their record is
7-1, I believe.
3. Yeah, they've
7-1 in the playoffs.
7-1.
Yeah.
So they're going home to a very powerful arena where they win, and they win just about every single game. So I wouldn't sweat it if I was Nashville, but they have to win both games.
Well, what we said in the Rangers series, before the Rangers got knocked out by Ottawa, that the team is not in trouble until they lose a game at home.
That's right.
That's what I kept saying through the whole series. Yeah. The Rangers weren't in trouble until they lose a game at home. Well, ultimately, they ended up losing a game at home, and it cost them the series. But and you know what? What really strikes me with this postseason, or with this playoff, this Stanley Cup Final, is after game 2, I was up. I wasn't going to bed that early. I watched all the post-game stuff on NHL Network. And, of course, they got their little studio set up just outside the arena so the fans can, come in behind the set and, the fans do their, woo, thing.
Yeah.
It reminded me, it so reminded me of 2011. It's crazy. It's scary how eerily similar this series is so far, even though it's only 2 games old, to 2011. Now, if you remember back to 2011, Vancouver dominated Boston, games 1 and 2.
Right.
Won both games without a doubt. After game 2, you've got the Vancouver fans doing the same thing as Pittsburgh fans are now. Celebrating, acting like they already won the cup. We're up 2-1 or 2-0. There's no way we're going to lose this series. Woo, we got this, Pittsburgh fans were celebrating like they had already won the cup the other night outside the arena. So when I saw that, I'm like, you know what? This looks like 2011. It really does. And, of course, in 2011, we all know Bruins, did go down 2-0 in that series, but they won both games in Boston, tied the series up 2-2. Basically, the home game won every game in that series except Game 7, and then Boston ended up winning Game 7 in Vancouver. That's how that series went. So,
it can happen. I believe that Nashville can come all the way back, not just halfway back. I think they can win both games. If they do, It seems that their short-term memory is good. They can cancel out a game, forget all about it, take it one game at a time and go. But if they're able, this game tomorrow is critical, because the way I'm looking at it right now, I find it hard to believe that the Nashville Predators are going to win 4 of the next 5 games against the Pittsburgh Penguins. Maybe against the Ottawa Senators, they could do it. But it's going to be hard for Nashville to win 4 of the next 5 against Pittsburgh. They could do it. I'm not saying they couldn't.
Well, 3 of those games are in Nashville, so
3 of those games are in Nashville. Like I said, they've got to win both those games, and then we'll see. I think we'll be doing a podcast before the games 5, 6, and 7.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, because basically from here on out, there's 2 days off between each game, so we're only playing every third game at this, or every third day at this point. So yeah, between now and our next podcast, there's only going to be 2 more games. We'll be talking about games 3 and 4 on the next podcast. So, but yeah, I think they can. I think they can win both games as well. I'm with you on that one.
I think here's what I'm thinking. Mike Sullivan and the Pittsburgh coaching staff, Jim Rutherford, all those guys, they're going to. We got to win a game in Nashville. Doesn't matter about the first game. I really don't think they're going to come out on the ice and say this is the game we got to have, unless they get, into the late in the second period and they've got the lead or the game is tied, and then they're going to really. And I'm not saying they're going to sit back on their laurels that they're up 2-0. I'm just saying that
they're just going to try to keep it close.
They're going to keep it close. They're going to keep it tight. Can we win this game? Yes, we can. Then they'll take that game. And if they win game 3, Nashville's not. I don't. If I was a betting man, and I'm not, I'd walk into Caesar's Palace and put it all down on Pittsburgh. I mean, because they're not. Nashville's not going to win 4 in a row. But in terms of the next 2 games, I think they're looking at it as we just have to win one of those games, and we really are in a very comfortable position for this Stanley Cup.
Yep.
It's so like I said,
yep.
That's the how they're going to look at it. And if Nashville comes out, you could see it. The fans are behind them. Nashville scores first. A lot of momentum swings to Nashville's way. If they score another goal and they're up 2-0, Pittsburgh, they're going to sit there and say, hey, no need to worry. We're playing on their home ice. We should have expected this, et cetera, et cetera. And they may try and claw their way back in, but they don't have to win that game.
Yep.
Then you'll see the next game, adjustments, and Pittsburgh knows they got to try and win that one. So it's going to be very interesting. This game tomorrow night is going to be the big one.
Pretty much a must-win for Nashville, like you said. And I think Game 4 also is, because Nashville can't come back to Pittsburgh down 3-1. They really can't. If they want any chance of winning the Cup, these next 2 games have to go to Nashville, no matter what.
Right.
If that doesn't, the series is over. So
yeah.
But yeah, Game 3 is Saturday night, which is tomorrow night as we record this. Game 4 is Monday night. Game 5, if they need to play it, is not till Thursday, June 8th. Game 6 will be Sunday, June 11th. Game 7 will be Wednesday, June 14th. So, of course, 5, 6, and 7 are still have the asterisk under if necessary. So
yeah, I think 1 or 2 of those games for sure are going to be played. So I just think that Nashville is primed.
Yep. And of course, PK Subban is really confident that they're going to win. So, but we'll talk about that a little bit later. So yeah. Other than that, I don't have anything else to talk about in terms of the Stanley Cup Final. So unless you don't, let's go ahead and move on.
No, I like what you said. I agree with it, and I see it as Nashville fight back. I'm pulling for Nashville, win these next 2 games and make it a series.
Yep, I am too. I'm right there with you. All right, well, let's move on to some of the transactions that have been happening. And last week was very slow in terms of players signing with pro teams, but things have picked up, which leads me to believe that the teams are getting a little antsy about the upcoming, because right after the Stanley Cup Final ends, you got the expansion draft, you've got the entry draft, you've got free agency right after that. There's a lot going to be happening to your favorite team, even though your teams are probably eliminated. There's a lot to talk about there. So let's go down the list. All of the players that I found have signed with teams, and I didn't have a chance to look at it today. I made this list last night.
And you had a big week. I'm just going to say that before you even say anything. You had a big – the Bruins, I know they're partying on this one, so we'll just wait till it comes out. But you got to be happy about the signing.
All right, I just pulled up, while you were talking, I just pulled up the transactions that have happened. No, none have happened today. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4 on June 1st. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right, there were a couple that happened after I got done. I don't know which ones they were. Okay, Henrik Haapala, who was playing for Tappara in Finland, signed with the Florida Panthers. Let's see, who was the other one that I missed? That's it. Thomas Heike, who was playing for BK Mlada Boleslav. That's hard to say. Signed with the Vegas Golden Knights, so they now have 3 players.
Yep.
Michael's, or I don't know if it's pronounced Michael or Michel Spacek, out of Czechoslovakia or Czech Republic. Boy, I'm struggling tonight. Was with the Red Deer Rebels, is now with the Winnipeg Jets. Maxim Mamin, forward, who was with CSKA Moscow, is now with the Florida Panthers. So they signed a KHL player. He should probably go straight to the pros. I can't imagine a KHL player would come over here if he wasn't going to be with the big club.
Right.
Jonas Johansson, out of Brynäs in the Swedish league, signed with Buffalo. Another Brynäs player, Oscar Lindblom, forward, signed with Philadelphia Flyers. Christian Jaros, defenseman from Luja in the Slovakian league, I believe.
That's good.
Although he may be with the Swedish. I don't know Luja. I don't know that club. They may be. He's Slovakian, but not sure that the club team he was playing for. But anyway, he'll be with the Ottawa Senators. I'll skip the next one. We'll finish with that one. Philip Holm, defenseman, Vaxio Lakers Hockey Club, is now with the Vancouver Canucks. Victor Antipin, defenseman, who was playing for Metallurg Magnitogorsk of the KHL, is now with the Buffalo Sabres. Again, probably a guy that's going to go straight to the big leagues in that one.
Right, that's right.
Matis Edmonds Kivlenkis, goaltender, was with the Sioux City Musketeers, signed with the Columbus Blue Jackets. Sioux City is in the USHL, I believe. So he probably won't be. He'll be a long-term project for Columbus. Well, they got Bobrovsky anyway, so. Libor Sulak, defenseman, was with the Pelicans. Doesn't say what league that was. And he has signed with the Detroit Red Wings. That leaves us with actually 2 others, but I have stories on those. The first one I want to talk about is the LA Kings acquired the rights of unsigned draft choice Bakanji, or he's also known as Boko Imama, from the Tampa Bay Lightning in exchange for the Kings' 7th-round selection in the 2018 NHL Draft. Kings Vice President and General Manager Rob Blake announced on Wednesday. The trade is conditioned on the Kings signing Imama to an NHL contract before Thursday's June 1st, 2 p.m. Pacific time signing deadline. I didn't know there was a deadline there, and I didn't get a chance to research what that deadline was about. Imama, a 6'1", 220-pound forward and an assistant captain, played in 66 games with the St. John Sea Dogs of the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League this past season, recording 41 goals and 55 points to go along with 105 penalty minutes and a +11 rating. He led all Sea Dogs skaters in goals, was 5th in the points, and was 3rd for penalty minutes. The Kings did end up signing him before that deadline to a 3-year entry-level contract, and didn't say how much the contract was for. But this Kings fans are pretty excited about this kid. So
okay,
he was obviously the 41 goals for the St. John Sea Dogs, and of course they went to the Memorial Cup. They won the Quebec League. He was their leading goal scorer, so this kid has a pretty good chance of making the team right out of camp. So I would not be surprised.
Good. Especially with the Kings and the way their situation is right now.
They need goal scorers in a big way. So I think they're going to give him every shot to make the big club. So, but that was a trade that happened earlier this week. Also this week, the Boston Bruins announced on May 30th that the team signed forward Anders Bjork to a 3-year entry-level contract beginning with the 17-18 season. Bjork served as an alternate captain for Notre Dame Fighting Irish this past season, finishing the year with 21 goals and 31 assists for 52 points, all career highs, with 16 penalty minutes and a plus 17 rating. Now, of course, 52 points doesn't sound like a lot, but if you remember, NCAA only plays between 32 and 38 games a season, so
right.
He was averaging well over a point a game.
Great player.
And of course, you and I both watched the Frozen Four.
Yeah.
He was clearly the best player on the Notre Dame Fighting Irish in my mind.
No question. Yep, and he's a very, very good offensive threat.
Yep.
For the Bruins, and they got to be happy about this one.
Yep.
This is up there with Charlie McAvoy, in my opinion.
Yep.
So.
Yeah, and I think he's up there in talent, right up there with Jimmy Vesey as well, because he was a Hobey Baker finalist this year too.
Right.
And he's a little on the smallish side. He's 5'11", 183 pounds. But of course, this day and age, as long as the speed is there, and he's got no shortage of it, because we watched him play. With that speed, he'll be a good addition to the Bruins, and a lot of the Bruins experts are saying that he should have a pretty good shot at making the team and possibly even be a top 6 forward for them. So yeah, I'm very excited to see what this kid can do in a Bruins uniform. So you got Bjork now, you've got McAvoy sign. Should be a fun start to the season for the Bruins.
Oh yeah.
They're going to be young, but there's going to be some new faces there, and hopefully
you got Danton Heinen and
Senyshyn and the Bruins are set. They've made this transition, I think, and they're going to be a good team next year.
Yep. So good. I'm hoping so. All right. Next story I've got a couple of retirees. Steve Ott officially retired. He was with the Montreal Canadiens. He retired on the 25th, and Craig Cunningham, of course, officially retired as an Arizona Coyote on the 28th. And both took front office jobs with their respective teams. Well, I know Cunningham was with the Coyotes. Ott, I think he ended up in St. Louis. I think I have that story here somewhere anyway. Vancouver Canucks acquired a second-round pick in the 17 draft from the Columbus Blue Jackets on Wednesday as compensation for hiring coach John Tortorella. Tortorella was hired as Blue Jackets coach on October 21st, 2015, after he was fired by the Canucks on May 1st, 2014, with 4 years still remaining on a 5-year contract. After being hired by the Columbus Blue Jackets, the Blue Jackets were given the option to send their second-round draft pick in either 16, 17, or 18 to Vancouver as compensation. And, of course, they obviously chose the 2017 draft to go ahead and finalize that deal. And that pick is going to be the number 55 pick in the draft. Mm-hmm. So Vancouver just added themselves a nice draft pick for basically nothing. and they stopped that practice, by the way. They ended that rule when you sign a coach that was previously under contract or previously fired. They no longer give compensation. Otherwise, the Bruins should have gotten something for Montreal signing Claude Julien. Yeah, but they don't. They stopped that going into last summer. I think they stopped that practice. All right, next story. Minnesota Wild assistant coach Scott Stevens resigned on Tuesday, saying he wants to spend more time with his family. He quoted his quote, "I just want to be close to them," Stevens told the Wild website. "That's the toughest part of the job, moving away from your house and being away from your family. I need them, and that's what it comes down to. When you've been in one spot for a long time and raised your kids, it's a little tougher than you think. I had nothing but great experience in Minnesota. I met a lot of people and have a lot of new friends that I'll keep forever." So basically what had happened is when Stevens got hired as an assistant coach for the Wild, he went out there, but his family stayed behind in the New York area.
Yep.
So obviously he missed them. He probably decided he didn't like coaching as much, and he didn't say what his future plans are. He basically said he doesn't have any plans right now. My guess is he was an analyst with the NHL Network before he got hired by Minnesota. He'll probably come back to the NHL Network at some point because their studios are in Secaucus, New Jersey. So
yeah. Well, listen, I have no idea what goes through the mind of Scott Stevens. I don't. But I can tell you that as an analyst, he's an excellent one on NHL Network.
Yep.
But I think he is a very good coach. I think he
just might not have enjoyed it, or he missed his family more than
He got the opportunity to get some experience, and I think if somebody like, and I don't, as I said, I don't know, if somebody like the Islanders or the Devils said, "Listen, we need an assistant coach," and went to him, I think he'd go right back into it, because I think
he'd be home, yeah.
Yep, valuable experience. And he knows the Stanley Cup, how to win a Stanley Cup. He can bring a lot to any hockey team. And I just think that I think that he resigned because it's true. He wants to stay close to his family. Why rent an apartment in Minneapolis? It's not a long-term thing. I got my experience, and we'll see what happens. I think in that when he says in what it says here, and again I'm speculating. I could be wrong. Maybe he doesn't want to go in coaching in it ever again. But when it says at this point, I'm just going to take a step back. He really has no plans. I just want to get back home and get settled, and we'll see where it goes. I think if one of those teams offers him an assistant coaching job, maybe even the Boston Bruins, it's not too far. He might take something like that,
Yeah. If he wants to basically be able to go home to his home where his family is at night, I think his only options in terms of coaching would be the 3 teams in the New York area. Because Boston's still a bit of a commute, because traffic on I-95 is not exactly the greatest in going through Connecticut, so particularly during rush hour. So. Yeah. Of course, you know that as well as I do.
Remains to be seen, but I do not think that Scott Stevens took a coaching job in Minneapolis on a whim and didn't realize. I think he got it to put it on his resume. I have the experience now, and if one of these teams will hire me, I think I'll get back on. That's my feeling, but I could.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if one of those teams reach out to him, and also, I'd be surprised if he didn't come back to at the very least, come back to NHL Network, because
he will. Yeah.
He can go to their studios and be home later that night, so without having to fly. So, but anyway, what he does next remains to be seen. All right. Next one, less than a year after deciding to end a playing career that spanned 16 seasons, Scott Gomez was hired Tuesday by the Islanders as an assistant coach under Doug Weight. Gomez is the second assistant Weight has hired in the past 2 weeks. Luke Richardson joined the Islanders on May 18th. Gomez had 756 points in 1,079 NHL games with the Devils, Rangers, Canadiens, Sharks, Panthers, Blues, and Senators. He had 101 playoff points in 149 playoff games. So it's like the Islanders are just really cleaning house right now.
Yeah.
Everything but their GM, anyway.
Yeah. Wow.
I know a lot of people like to make fun of Garth Snow in the Island because, especially under the circumstances he was hired. If you remember way back when, he was basically hired. He was the backup goalie, and the owner of the Islanders decided to hire him as the GM, basically. Take your skates off, take your jersey off, go upstairs into the press box. You're now the GM. I mean, it happened that quickly. So he was the brunt of a lot of jokes. I never liked to do it because, he's a University of Maine guy, and I had a lot of respect for him as a Maine player, and, I still do. But so I never liked to make fun of him, but, the rest of the hockey world does. But, he's turned out to do an okay job. I mean, they're not perennial cup contenders, but they weren't really that before that anyway. So anyway, it looks like the Islanders are getting serious about getting good again. So we'll see how that turns out. All right, next story. Defenseman Michael Kempny agreed to terms in a 1-year contract with the Chicago Blackhawks on Saturday. Financial terms were not disclosed. That was a re-signing. He was with them before. There was talk of him going back to the KHL, but obviously he won't be. The Canucks signed him. And I believe I saw somewhere else that it was pretty cap-friendly terms, somewhere in the $1 to $2 million neighborhood, but don't quote me on that. Mm-hmm. All right, Steve Ott was named an assistant coach for the St. Louis Blues on Thursday, which officially ends his NHL playing career after 14 seasons. The 34-year-old who played for the Blues from 2013 to 2016 signed a 3-year contract. So apparently he didn't like old Montreal, huh? Didn't want to stay there. Can't say as I blame him.
He wasn't in a Montreal jersey for long, though. You know?
No, he wasn't. No, what, quarter of a season, something like that.
Yeah.
He was a rental player, basically.
Yeah.
All right, unless you have any other transactions, that's all I have.
That's sounds good to me, Wayne.
All right, let's move on to injuries. And there were a few this week. Columbus Blue Jackets center Brandon Dubinsky is expected to be ready for the start of training camp in September following wrist surgery on Monday. Dubinsky's recovery will take about 3 months. He had been experiencing discomfort in his wrist since the season ended, and after examination last week, it was determined that surgery was the best course of action. We expect that he'll be ready to go when training camp begins in September, GM Jarmo Kekalainen said in a statement. Dubinsky, who's 31, had 41 points and was a plus 16 in 80 regular season games this season. Had 2 points in 5 Stanley Cup playoff games. So
very important player to Columbus.
Yep. I didn't know he was hurt, but apparently he was. All right, now Erik Karlsson will have an MRI and X-rays on his injured left heel next week, but the Ottawa Senators defenseman said Saturday he expects to fully recover. Karlsson played the entire playoff with 2 hairline fractures in his foot. Man, that's nuts. I'm going to have to go over that this week, Karlsson said at Canadian Tire Center, where the Senators cleaned out their lockers after being eliminated in Game 7 of the Eastern Conference Final on last Thursday. Haven't really done much the previous 2 days, he said. I'm going to get an MRI and some X-rays done this week, and we'll go from there. But hopefully it shouldn't be an issue coming the start of next year. All right, so obviously we knew that Karlsson was hurt. It was pretty well known.
Yeah.
So looks like he's getting it taken care of. Arizona Coyotes center Tobias Ryder is expected to be ready for the start of next season following surgery for an ankle injury he sustained playing for Germany at the World Championships last month. Coyote said his recovery time will be 8 to 12 weeks. Ryder was injured when he crashed into the boards in a 6-3 loss to Russia on May 8th. And did not play the rest of the World Championship after that. He had 34 points in 80 games with the Coyotes this season. He's going to be a wily veteran, even though he's 24. Yeah, they have so much youth there in Arizona. He's one of their veteran players.
Yes, he is, and they do have a lot of youth.
Yep,
one of the youngest teams in the league, aren't they?
If not the youngest. Mm-hmm. It's either them or Carolina, one or the other. All right, Anaheim Ducks defensemen Hampus Lindholm and Sami Vatanen are likely to miss the start of next season after each sustained shoulder injury during the playoffs, GM Bob Murray said on Thursday. Lindholm would need 4 to 5 months to recover after surgery to repair a torn labrum. Vatanen, who will have surgery to repair the same injury, will need more time than Lindholm, Murray said. We're almost positive Hampus is having shoulder surgery, Murray said. Sammy needs surgery. He's deciding where to do it. These two guys have had bad shoulders, and they played through them all throughout the playoffs. Vatanen was injured in Game 1 of a Western Conference first-round sweep against the Calgary Flames and returned for Game 3 of the second round against the Oilers. And, of course, the Ducks ended up beating the Oilers in 7. Lindholm injured his shoulder in Game 4 against the Flames but did not miss a game. Forward Patrick Eaves, who was injured in the second round and didn't play the final 10 games of the playoffs, had a deep bone bruise, Murray said. Eaves can become an unrestricted free agent on July 1st. Forward Ricard Raquel, who missed the final 2 games, had an ankle sprain, and defenseman Kevin Bieksa, who was injured in Game 1 against the Oilers and missed 9 games with lower body injury before returning Game 4 of the conference final, said he played with a torn MCL that doesn't need surgery. Center Nate Thompson sustained a hairline fracture in his ankle against the Flames, but did not miss a game. And center Ryan Kessler, who scored 1 goal in 17 playoff games, was asked if he was 100%, and he said, quote, "Was I? I didn't play like it, that's for sure. I'm not a big fan of guys divulging injuries," he said. "I'm sure I'll get it looked after. Hopefully, I don't need to get anything done." So he didn't confirm or deny that he was injured, but, a goal in 17 games it's amazing they got as far as they did with that performance.
Yep.
All right. That leads us to Milestones, Records, Honors, which I didn't find any this week unless you did.
There were none that I saw or could report on.
Okay. Suspensions and fines. PK Subban has not been shy about his. This story we're gonna wait.
Okay.
You wanted to talk about that towards the end of the show.
Yeah.
We have a PK Subban story to talk about. So there's a teaser for you. All right. Some of the other interesting stories that went on during the week. There's a lot of speculation. I'm not going to read everything that I wrote in the show notes because it's pretty much the article that I found verbatim.
This next one is a great one.
Alex Ovechkin.
This is a great story.
I read the story, but it looks like Alex Ovechkin may be available for the right price.
Yeah.
I guess
That's right.
In a nutshell is the story.
Yeah.
It seems to be some tumultuous times there in Washington. Looks like Ovechkin is on the hot seat. Barry Trotz is on the hot seat. So it looks like the GM of the Washington Capitals has not ruled out trading Ovechkin, or at the very least, stripping him of his captaincy. Brian McClellan, who's the GM of the Washington Capitals, also said that he hasn't been entirely happy with Barry Trotz's performance, but he's not ready to fire him. But he's also said he's not ready to offer him any kind of an extension. So it should be interesting to see. And with this, I'm like, this is one of those stories that should have stayed behind closed doors, I think, but somehow got out.
You know what? That's a good point. For the sake of the Washington Capitals, I wanted to talk about this story with you.
Yeah.
Listen, we both know the Capitals need an overhaul. I don't know how major you want to call it, but they need an overhaul. They need to change what they're doing in order to progress. And if it means trading Alexander Ovechkin and that turns out to work, more power to him. Yep. If it means that Barry Trotz doesn't go any further after this last year and they get a new coach, and great. But they got to do something. I don't know that Alexander Ovechkin is the reason for all these years where they got a goalie in Braden Holtby who could very well win the Vezina for the second year in a row.
Yep.
Who couldn't stop Pittsburgh. That's not Alexander Ovechkin's fault.
Nope.
I really was surprised at how Holtby played in that series. They had a chance.
Yeah. But at the same time, Ovechkin didn't put up great numbers either. Now, that could just be because the opponents that they played, put more attention at stopping him.
Yeah, and he was hurt.
Which is part of it, but big players step up at big times. Crosby gets a lot of attention from opposing teams, but he still gets his numbers.
Right.
He just turns it up a notch too.
Right.
So yeah, essentially what it is you've got Ovechkin, who they're not entirely happy with. They've got Trotz, who they're not entirely happy with. They've got some I guess you can really narrow it down to they've got some culture issues inside that locker room where that may be causing them. They're trying to get to the bottom of the fact that they haven't made it out of the second round at all in the Ovechkin era.
Right.
And he's been their captain for a long time. So Trotz hasn't been there forever. The second round failures, if you will, were happening before Trotz got there, but it obviously hasn't changed because they're still losing almost every year in the second round. So ultimately, what needs to happen is owner Ted Leonsis and the GM Brian McClellan are adamant that they want this disappointment to stop, and they want to move on to the next round.
Right.
So, and they're at this point,
this was the year they would do it.
Yeah.
They had it and they blew it. But again, I'm going back to it's not just Alex Ovechkin's fault.
Nope.
And yeah, you can take it and tie it around his neck and make him the scapegoat for it. But there's reasons other than Alex Ovechkin. And, hey, maybe this is Alex Ovechkin's swan song. He's going to Vegas. I don't know. But
I think if they ultimately do move Ovechkin, it will be to a Western Conference team. Washington is not going to allow Ovechkin to stay in the East. That much I would bet on.
Yeah,
you're not going to take a good player like him and keep him in the East where
the Rangers would love to have him. I'm going to tell you, they'd love because they need a goal scorer. Even if he's 31 years old.
Hey, we'll put him on a line with David Krejci. He'd look good there too.
Yeah.
But I'd hate to see Boston mortgage their future to get a guy like him too. So
that's true.
And that's ultimately the only way that Washington get enough in return for Ovechkin, because he could still have 3, 4, 5 more years of 40 goals plus.
Oh, sure. No question about it.
The price for him, he's got a price, but I guarantee you it's pretty high. You're talking probably multiple first-round draft picks and some NHL caliber talent going the other way for him. So, but could be an interesting story to follow.
It's going to get dicey this summer too.
Yep.
It's going to heat up. So.
All right, let's move on to the next one. Next one's real quick. The Winnipeg Jets renamed their arena. It's going to be known as Bell MTS Place. Of course, it was known as the MTS Center before. All that is just simply Bell Canada launched Bell MTS following the acquisition of Manitoba Telecom Services in March. So it's just a slight name change. The sponsor essentially is the same, or the company is the same. They're just changing the name of the arena. So that's all that is. All right, next one. NHL Commissioner Gary Bettman on Monday announced a schedule of special events for the 27-18 season, including the 2018 All-Star Game, which will be held at Amalie Arena in Tampa, Florida on January 28th. We should go.
Yeah, that would be fun.
That would be fun.
That's unbearable of a drive.
No, roughly 10, 12 hours from here?
That sounds right.
Yep.
Yeah, something like that.
Yep, that would be a fun weekend. Go down there, bask in the sun for a couple days. All right. And also, he announced that the 2018 Coors Light NHL Stadium Series between the Toronto Maple Leafs and Washington Capitals at Navy Marine Corps Memorial Stadium in Annapolis, Maryland on March 3rd. Bettman gave his State of the League address before the Pittsburgh Penguins and Nashville Predators played Game 1 of the Stanley Cup Final. He touched on the ambitious international offering of events ranging from the 2017 NHL China Games, the preseason games between the LA Kings and the Vancouver Canucks September 21 and 23 in China, to the 2017 SAP NHL Global Series in Sweden, which will be 2 regular season games between the Avalanche and the Senators on November 10th and 11th. Bettman said the outdoor game between the Capitals and Maple Leafs will launch a series of Coors Light at NHL Stadium Series games at U.S. military academies over the next few seasons. So an outdoor game in Annapolis, Maryland.
Very good venue for it.
That's another one. That's another one we should go.
In March 3rd, it's probably still cold up there in Maryland.
Yeah, oh yeah.
That I thought I was very glad to see that.
Yep.
That's an excellent place for an outdoor game and excellent venue. They'll probably sell it out. I mean, that'll
only
be
about a 5-6 hour drive for us.
That's not far at all.
We got to raise some crowdfunding here so we can go to some of these things.
Yeah. Yep. I got to do something.
We'll be happy to report to all the listeners if we can raise the funds to have them help us go. We will be happy to report daily, hourly, whatever they want.
That's right. The City Field Winter Classic, even though that's a little bit longer drive, let's include that too.
Yeah, right. So I mean, it's not like we're going to try to go to Sweden or anything. We just want to go. We just want to go to the stuff that's within driving distance of here. Yeah. All right. So back to the All-Star Game, though. Basically the format's going to be the same. It's going to be 3-on-3 with the skills competition. Same thing as was this year. So apparently they like that format. And what else did they come out of that? He addressed a variety of topics, including video review, the rationale for preseason games in China, and the 2018 Pyeongchang Olympics, and the possibility of Nashville hosting an outdoor game. So the video review, basically in a nutshell, they're going to be taking a look at things, but ultimately right now they're happy with the way things are for the most part. So they might see some slight changes, but he didn't speculate on what. On the Olympics, he said the things talking about China, we're obviously going to be playing preseason games in China and the regular season games in Sweden. We had, as part of discussions toward the end of last year, we had hoped to develop with the NHLPA, the Player Association, a robust calendar over a 9-year period that would have included 2 World Cups, possibly the 2 Olympics, and what we've been calling the 2 Ryder Cups, in addition to a variety of other ventures. but that kind of got derailed because it wasn't something that we could get traction on with the Players Association. So Bettman blaming the players once again for them not being able to do anything. He does like to blame the players a lot for stuff. That's why the fans don't like him. Bettman later gave additional background behind the lack of traction, saying the league met with the Players Association in November to talk about the World Cups. He said, "We said conceptually that's a great idea, except we each have a reopener of the collective bargaining agreement exercisable by notice in September of 2019, effective by notice in September of 2020. If we're going to plan a World Cup of 2020, we either need to give up the reopener or pick a different date." Mm-hmm. On growing the game in China, we're working very hard and very focused on developing the Chinese market, in part because we have been told by the Chinese government at very high levels that there is, leading up to 2022, a priority to develop winter sports. I was told by the Minister of Sport when I was there about a month ago that they would like to see 300 million more participants in winter sports, particularly and including hockey. The issue of the Olympics of 2022 in all my meetings was when I was in Beijing never came up. And I think the focus is more about long-term developing the sport, not necessarily what happens for 2 weeks in 2022. On participation of the 2018 Olympics in South Korea, whether or not it was still a settled issue, he said 6 weeks ago, we were very clear, definitive that the teams had no interest in going to the Olympics in Pyeongchang. Was it still an open issue? It is not and has not been. On the possibility of signature events being held in Nashville, an outdoor game in Nashville at some point might be nice. They have a nice outdoor stadium, actually a couple to choose from. Mm-hmm. So
that would be really something, venturing that far south to play a game. And it would have to be played in February, wouldn't you say? February or
Probably,
March,
yeah, February, early March. But if they can pull off in Nashville, well, they did L.A., and L.A.'s climate is roughly similar to Nashville and Carolina. So
right, I agree.
If they could do L.A., they could do Nashville. If they could do Nashville, they can do Carolina.
That's true.
I'm still holding out hope that we're going to get one here.
That would be great.
Yep. All right, next story. Vegas Golden Knights will have an additional 24 hours to complete NHL expansion draft process than originally planned, NHL Deputy Commissioner Bill Daly said on Monday. The list of protected players from the other 30 NHL teams will be provided to the Golden Knights at 10 a.m. on June 18th. That's just 4 days after Game 7, by the way. And they will have until 10 a.m. on June 21st to submit their selection list. The 72-hour window is up from the original one of 48 hours, Daly said. The Golden Knights can sign any restricted or unrestricted free agent left unprotected by his team, and the window for them to do that was also increased from 48 hours to 72 hours between those same dates, the 18th to the 21st. These free agents would not otherwise be allowed to sign with a team different than the one they played this season, July 1st. And it sounds like George McPhee is going to be going after some of these restricted and unrestricted free agents during that window.
I agree. I've been keeping tabs on the Vegas situation. I get the feeling that while Bob McKenzie said there's a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes, we don't want you to pick this guy, blah, 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 and I'm sure that's going on. I think George McPhee knows to a certain extent he's in the driver's seat.
Yep.
And
he certainly is.
He's not worried about breaking,
He's in the driver's seat. He holds all the cards, but at the same time, I don't think he wants to go pissing off other GMs because he's going to have to deal with them, once they get going.
Agreed. Yeah. But let's.
So if a team
some
comes
of these
to
players are in contractual predicaments, and McPhee is the guy who can make some of that stuff go away for some teams. I'm thinking specifically right now Marc-Andre Fleury and Matt Murray. That's a big one.
Yep.
Pittsburgh's not solving that one yet and can't. They're in the Stanley Cup Finals.
Yep, and I can't wait to see what they do to solve it.
Yeah, they're going to have to solve it because I just don't see George McPhee ducking both those players.
Right.
I just don't see it happening. One of those two guys is going to go.
Yep. Well, see what's happening. Basically, George McPhee has talked to. I wouldn't be surprised if he's had multiple conversations with every GM in the league. Yep. He's not going to want to piss off a guy that he might eventually make a trade with down the road. a season or two down the road. So if a team comes to him, and from what it sounds like, most of the conversations that are happening, teams are approaching him saying, hey, what do we need to do to make sure that you don't take this guy or this guy, right?
Right.
So Pittsburgh may have already done that with their goalie situation. They may have already gone to Vegas and say, we want to keep both Murray and Fleury. What do you want in order to make that happen for us? And that's what Bob McKenzie is essentially referring to is the behind the scenes stuff. So we could do all the mock drafts. I thought about it this week. I'm like, why even bother do a mock expansion draft? Because all those backdoor deals are going on.
Right.
That's going to just throw a monkey wrench into any draft situation. So,
well, and you make a great point. And here's the thing, though. I'm George McPhee, and I'm sitting there, and I'm starting up a team. And I got to have a good goalie. I can't just – and, if there's not an availability of a good goalie anywhere, then I'll just have to take my chances and go with somebody that I feel I can get. But here's Matt Murray and Marc-Andre Fleury. Yep. Fleury with a no trade clause, no movement clause.
Right. So they would need Fleury's permission to move him, first of all.
And maybe in Pittsburgh, that's the way to go, is say, look, we've talked with Marc-Andre Fleury. He will take the trade and go that way. That solves a big problem, because if I'm George McPhee, I'm sitting there and I get the phone call from Bill Rutherford. I'm going to say, listen, I got to get a good goalie. I'm looking at your team, and you can only protect one.
Right.
So what are you going to do? I mean, you got to do something. Put yourself in my shoes, because I got to produce a winning team soon. So here I'm looking at 2 Stanley Cup winning goalies.
Yep.
And you want to sit there and keep both of them. No other team in the league has that luxury. So what are you going to do? I mean, I want Matt Murray. He's not protected. That's who I want.
Yep.
And Rutherford can't sit there and feel pissed off about that. I mean,
he's had plenty of opportunities. He's had plenty of opportunities to move one of those players. He could have done it at the trade deadline. He didn't.
Yep.
He could have done it during the season and didn't.
Yep.
He decided that they were going to make their Stanley Cup run with the 2 goalies they have and worry about that later. And later's coming right up. They're going to have about 4 days after the Stanley Cup Final ends, assuming it goes all the way to 7 games.
Right.
They're going to have 4 days to figure out what they're going to do. And then they're going to have to give Vegas a list of protected and unprotected players. And, one of those goalies is going to be on that list of unprotected players. So,
yeah.
Because they won't be able to trade. I don't think they can trade him after the season ends.
Who's that?
The Pittsburgh. I don't think they can trade him after the season ends and before the expansion draft in that 4-day window.
Right. You mean Fleury?
Either one, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So
that one is a big one. It's not a small one. That's a big problem. And even if Pittsburgh wins the Stanley Cup, which right now odds on they're going to have to solve that problem in a limited amount of time. So I don't know. It's going to be something. I'm looking forward to it.
Yep. Should be fun. All right, we have a good news story. Not that none of these weren't good news, but came out right after Ottawa got eliminated that Nicole Anderson, the wife of Ottawa Senators goaltender Craig Anderson, is cancer-free, according to Craig Anderson.
Yeah.
Nicole was diagnosed in October with nasopharyngeal carcinoma, a rare form of throat cancer. The couple received the good news after tests this week, Craig Anderson said. He did a PET scan and MRIs, and as of right now, everything is clean, and we'll just cross our fingers, he said. We've got to do scans, I think, every 3 months. As of right now, things are positive, but you're not out of the woods until you get 2 years of cancer-free news. So, good news for the Anderson family there.
Yeah, very good news.
Apparently, she is cancer-free at the moment. All right, and the final one I have under this category is the trade discussions ahead of the NHL expansion draft heating up. Vegas GM George McPhee said he expects his first trades would be completed as early as next week. McPhee said Thursday that other NHL GMs are eager to get the Golden Knights to agree to compensation in order to not take a protected player. See, we talked about that, how their teams are doing that.
Mm-hmm.
There has been a lot of discussion in the past few days, and I think it's going to be pretty steady from here on out, McPhee said in Windsor, Ontario, where he's scouting prospects in the Memorial Cup tournament.
Yeah.
He said several GMs have tried to make appointments to get together at NHL Scouting Combine next week, but we'll certainly do that. we have a pretty good idea, obviously, what players are on the bubble. Like he said, a lot of NHL teams can protect 7 forwards, 3 defensemen, and 1 goaltender, or 8 skaters of any position. I can't see a team would do that. You cost yourself 2 players. And then, of course, Vegas will select 1 player from each of those teams. So, again, happens quick right after the finals are over.
Yeah.
If this final goes 7 games, they have exactly 4 days before the next deadline. So, should be interesting. All right. Do we even need to talk about power rankings? We're down to just 2 teams. I have Pittsburgh, Nashville is all I got.
And that's it. I agree. Power rankings are pretty much over.
Good. All right.
Next week, it might be interesting if it's tied 2-2.
Yeah, true. All right. Let's talk some Memorial Cup. Let's put that one to bed because that one finished up while we were away last. I can't remember where we were. I think we had 2 games left in the Memorial Cup when we last recorded.
That sounds right, Wayne.
And those final 2 games, Erie, that was the quote-unquote semifinal. Erie Otters beat the St. John, New Brunswick Sea Dogs 6-3 in that game to advance all the way to the championship of the Memorial Cup, which is a one and done, just like the NCAA national title. And in that game, the hometown, the host, Windsor Spitfires, stuns the Erie Otters.
Yep.
Winning 4-3.
Now, I don't know what kind of a season Windsor had.
They actually had a pretty good season. I looked it up. They had like 41 wins and 18, 19 losses, something like that. So
yeah. So they were
they weren't a bad team to begin with. No.
Okay.
No, they weren't good enough to win the Ontario Hockey League because the Erie Otters ended up winning that. But I hear a lot about the Canadian Hockey League in that the Ontario Hockey League is essentially the class of all of the junior teams or the 3 leagues. And of course, this proved it this year where both teams in the final were Ontario Hockey League teams. So, so congratulations to Windsor for beating Erie 4-3. Now, there was one thing that jumped out at me in that championship game, and that was the play of a guy named, and I'm trying to find him now, Jeremy Bracco, who had a goal and 2 assists in that game, and I think he had 8 points in 4 games for the whole tournament. He seems to be the guy. He led the team in points anyway in the Memorial Cup tournament, and was one of their best players throughout the season. He's going to be in Toronto. He's a Toronto draft pick.
Oh, okay. A name sounded familiar.
So add him to the long list of prospects that Toronto has.
Yeah. It's almost getting unfair now.
Yep.
This is becoming the Edmonton Oilers.
Well, in a few years here we have, last several years we've had, Penguins, Blackhawks, the same teams over and over at the top.
Yeah.
I think it changes in the air. We're going to start to see Edmonton, Toronto, Arizona, possibly even Carolina being perennial powerhouses. As weird as that sounds.
Yep.
So, and the Windsor winning goaltender, a kid by the name of Michael DiPietro, who has not been drafted yet. I believe he will be part of the draft this spring. So I'll be interested to see where he ends up going because he's put up great numbers this year. And the only thing concerning with him is he is a little on the short side, which this day and age is frowned upon if you're a goalie. So, all right, that's all I had from Memorial Cup. Again, congratulations to Windsor for winning that. The American Hockey League is next.
Yes.
And they seem to be progressing even slower than the NHL.
Yes.
The conference finals are now over. The Syracuse Crunch ended up beating Providence in 5 games. And the Grand Rapids Griffins ended up beating the San Jose Barracuda also in 5 games. So that sets up a Calder Cup Final. Grand Rapids Griffins against the Syracuse Crunch. So the travel times won't be so bad. Those 2 cities are relatively close together.
That's right.
And that game is actually, game 1 is in progress right now as we speak. It's 1-1 at this point. About I think late in the first period, I think is what I have. So yeah, disappointed that Providence didn't make it, but
yes, I was going to ask you about that.
Several players did get some playoff experience, so that's a good thing.
Yeah,
even though it's not quite the same as NHL, but it's similar because you get 7-game series, you need to win 4 series to win the Calder Cup. So in that sense, they got some experience. Just smaller crowds, that's all.
Yeah, that's going to be an interesting final. Grand Rapids, a perennially a good team.
Yep. Yeah. Syracuse is the minor league team for the Tampa Bay Lightning, and Grand Rapids is the minor league team for the Detroit Red Wings.
That's where Jeff Blashill came from. He coached the Grand Rapids Griffins.
He did. Yep.
So
Gustav Nyquist played there quite a bit. Jimmy Howard back in the day played there.
Yeah.
So yeah, a lot of Detroits.
They've had a lot of good players come through that organization. So
yeah. All right. And that leaves us with the ECHL, and that league is also in its final. And you've got the Stingrays from South Carolina playing against Colorado Eagles.
Yep.
And the Eagles are up 2-0 in that series.
Yes, that one's a little closer to home for us. The South Carolina Stingrays in Greenville.
Yep.
You know, that's
a couple 3 hours away.
Maybe three or 4 hours away, 3.5 maybe.
Yep.
But they're losing right now.
And didn't we read that Greensboro's getting a team in this league next year? No. No, they're getting a team in the Southern Pro Hockey League, I think.
The Winston-Salem Thunderbirds.
Or is it the Federal League?
Yeah, they're getting a team. The Federal League is getting the old Winston-Salem Thunderbirds are coming back.
That's right.
And they're going to be playing now at the Lawrence Joel Veterans Memorial Coliseum in Winston-Salem.
Yep.
So
I've heard that's an interesting building. I haven't had a chance to play or referee there, although I've guys I ref with have ref there before.
I've never watched a hockey game there, but I can tell you that the old building where Wake Forest played their games, Winston-Salem Coliseum, that building was the home of the Carolina Thunderbirds, and that was a wild place. They had a lot of hockey games there. Never went and watched one.
Yep.
But
interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. So
all right. Well, that concludes all of our playoff talk then for the minor leagues. So that leaves us with our picks of the week.
Yes, it does. And Wayne, I wanted to, before we said anything, I was very thankful for the response of this guy that wrote us on Facebook in regards to Alain Vigneault, and was very thought-provoking what he said. You read it on the last podcast, and I had a chance real quick to think about it really quickly, and I didn't want to give a response in case he's listening again. And if that's okay, he said that Alain Vigneault, I forget the words he chose, but to the extent is being touted as a better coach than he really is. Maybe that's maybe I'm not saying that entirely correctly, but wasn't singing the praises of Alain Vigneault. And I had a slight response for that. I first of all hope the Rangers keep Alain Vigneault as a coach, and I don't see a reason why they wouldn't. But if you look at him in the last 4 years as the coach of the New York Rangers, we went to the Eastern Conference Finals twice, and we did very well this year, came very close to going to the Eastern Conference Finals again for a third time. You look across the NHL, how many coaches have done that in the last 4 years? There's not too many of them. I can count them on one hand.
Yep. That
alone speaks a lot for Alain Vigneault. But on top of that, his coaching ability is very good. The Rangers are in the playoffs every year. He's been the coach, with the exception of the 1 year where we got beaten the first round, and that was last year by Pittsburgh, who won the Stanley Cup. We played very well. What he's lacking is a goal scorer. He really doesn't have. Rick Nash did not turn out to be, and that trade was made before his time. He doesn't have the elite goal scorer. But I think his coaching ability is very good, and I see no reason to. I think he's doing better than John Tortorella did. So that's my response. He's also won a President's Trophy with the Rangers, although that might not mean much to this gentleman. He's done very well in a very difficult division. So, I think he's third now on the wins list for the New York Rangers all time in 4 years. That, to me, he's doing very well. So I don't, he has not won a Stanley Cup. It's an extremely hard thing to do. Very difficult to win a Stanley Cup.
Yep, definitely.
If that's your criteria that he's no good because he hasn't won a Stanley Cup, then there's a lot of coaches out there who aren't good because they haven't won Stanley Cups, and that's not a good criteria. So that's all I had to say.
Okay. Yeah, and I'm trying to find the original message now.
It was a good. He had some good points, and
he did have some good points. Yep.
And
I think that the Rangers extended his contract this year for a reason. So I think Barry Trotz is a hell of a coach, but hasn't got him to the Stanley Cup.
Nope.
So
All right. Well, let's go ahead and move on to the picks of the week then. And I'll let you go ahead and start.
Okay.
Because yours is a good one.
Mine's a good one, but it's not as good as yours. I want to finish mine quickly so we can hear yours.
All right.
I read this article, Wayne, and I think I texted you and I told you. I immediately thought of Mark Messier because Mark Messier guaranteed a victory in Game 7 back in 1994 when they were playing the Vancouver Canucks, and he delivered on that. The New York Rangers went on to win the Stanley Cup in 1994, which for the first time in 54 years. PK Subban of the Predators stands by his guarantee of a Game 3 win. And I immediately thought of Mark Messier. PK Subban has not been shy about his confidence in the Nashville Predators and their ability to bounce back. The defenseman essentially guaranteed a Predators win against the Pittsburgh Penguins in Game 3 of the Stanley Cup Final at Bridgestone Arena on Saturday, 8 p.m., following a 4-1 loss in Game 2 at Pittsburgh on Wednesday. That in and of itself, if you're a hockey fan, watch this game. That in and of itself should be good.
Yep.
It's good enough for you.
Yep.
We don't lose in our building, Subban said. So we're going back home. We're going to win the next game, and then we'll see what happens from there. Subban doubled down on that guarantee Thursday with Nashville trailing in the series, the best-of-7 series, 2-0. I feel even more confident now that I've had a night of rest, Subban said. There's no question we're going to win the next game, and then we'll move forward. The Predators are 7-1 at home during the Stanley Cup playoffs, including 3-0 in the first home game of each of their series that they played so far. They expect a raucous crowd Saturday and will try to take the first step in evening the series before it heads back to Pittsburgh for Game 5. Well, they did what they had to do, Subban said. I mean, that's what they're supposed to do. They wanted to take the games at home, and now we have 2 games at home, and we want to take both of them. At the end of the day, it starts Saturday, and you want to take one game at a time. We've had tremendous success in our building, and we're going to take advantage of it. My hat's off to PK. I'm actually rooting for them. I hope they win. But that, that's a big, big guarantee there.
When I saw that story, I'm like, are you kidding me? He did not just do that. He did not just guarantee a win. Yep. I'm like, oh, now he's going to have to go out there and back it up. You're giving the other team chalkboard material. But you know what? If there's any guy in the league who would do something as bold as this, it would be PK Subban. He is just that kind of personality. And it's that personality that the Montreal Canadiens did not like and ultimately ended up shipping him out of town. But, that's Montreal's loss. So I think it's great. Anytime we can add more fun stuff to this whole thing. Yeah, like you said, that in itself, the guarantee in itself is enough to want to watch that game tomorrow night. So, yeah. All right. Well, while you were talking, I continued to look, and I found the original post. A gentleman by the name of Mike. I'm not going to give his last name. He may not want us to do that. So, but guy by the name of Mike. Here's his original post. He said, "Since you guys put such passion into this, I got to respect that, but I have to tell you that your objectivity gets a bit lost when it comes to your own teams. As an example, I'll just mention the assessment that Vigneault did nothing wrong." I don't think it said he did nothing wrong, but I think if you take it another look objectively, and keep in mind I'm no Sens fan or any Eastern Conference team for that matter, you'll see some truly lamentable personnel decisions prioritizing Stahl, Girardi, McDonough, for instance, while sitting Shea for extended periods when he had already shown he could be effective, when in fact the entire year he had demonstrated that the youngsters could be highly effective in all situations. Yeah, and also they sat Buchnevich a lot too.
Yes, they did. They didn't let him play in those last few.
Yep. These aren't 20/20 hindsight issues either, but the kind of thing an NHL coach should be able to see. And this is just one way in which outsiders could see this team was doomed by coaching decisions. This coach, I'll add, has acquired an image that people see as wise and knowing while he has never actually accomplished anything when it matters. Well, the reason, if anyone was interested in seeing it, was manifest during these playoffs. So, obviously, he's no Vigneault fan.
No, it's not.
So
I just gave him something to think about, though. You stack up the last 4 years and Alain Vigneault's record, and you look down the teams in the NHL or the Western Conference, whatever you want to do.
He makes a good point. Vigneault hasn't won in when it counted. I mean, he was Vancouver's head coach. He did take them all the way to the final, but ultimately had a 2-0 lead in that series and lost the series to Boston in 7. So don't know if you want to blame that all on the coach, but because there were players on that team that when Bruins turned up the heat physically on Vancouver, there were a lot of players on that team that essentially folded, if I remember correctly. So, pair of twins in particular. But anyway, but
I can go on.
In that sense, the points he's making, that was one of the reasons that the Bruins made the move with Claude Julien. He tended to favored his veteran guys. More than the younger players, and
I did not want to open up my other. When we did go to the Stanley Cup with Alain Vigneault, we lost 4-1 to the Los Angeles Kings. But you go back and check it. Okay, the Kings won 3 of those games in overtime. One game in the winner, the final 4th game that they won the Stanley Cup on, was a double overtime game. And in each of those games, if the Rangers had just won one of those games,
it's a whole new series.
Had a different story. So again, it's just like what happened to Ottawa. They had all kinds of chances in Game 7. They could be in the Stanley Cup right now, but Lady Luck didn't shine on Ottawa, and that's what happens a lot of times in the NHL playoffs nowadays. You have a tremendous amount of parity. You have difficult road no matter which way you go, and Alain Vigneault has not had Lady Luck shine on him. It just hasn't happened. And if you don't think that's important, I beg to differ with you. I mean, it is.
Well, the overtime games can go either way. It really can. And more often than not, both teams get really good chances. A lot of times hitting posts, crossbars, whatever. Like you said, a lot of times overtime games do come down to a bit of luck. And, those games can go either way. So anyway, enough about that. Let's move on to my pick of the week, which actually has a Carolina component to it. It's an article written by Tim Campbell with NHL.com, and I found it on NHL.com website, so you can find this article yourself. And it reads as follows. At 36, Pittsburgh Penguins defenseman Ron Hainsey has little interest in the first he has reached in the 2017 NHL playoffs. First playoff game, yes, at 36. First playoff point. First playoff goal, first Stanley Cup Final. It's safe to say he's only interested in what lies ahead, potentially winning the Stanley Cup for the first time. Pittsburgh Penguins lead the best-of-7 Cup Final 2-0 against the Nashville Predators. Game 3 is Saturday at Bridgestone Arena. I'm just very appreciative of this opportunity this year, Hainsey said. It's been great, and we're close to something pretty amazing. The opportunity has been a long time coming. The native of Bolton, Connecticut, has played 14 seasons with the Montreal Canadiens, Columbus Blue Jackets, Atlanta Thrashers, Winnipeg Jets, and Carolina Hurricanes. That was a collection of 907 regular season games before Hainsey participated in his first postseason game, and only because the Hurricanes traded him to the Penguins on February 23rd for a second-round pick in the 2017 NHL Draft and former Danny Cristo. No active NHL player had taken longer than Hainsey to reach the playoffs. He refuses to let that define him. He says he has never been frustrated or thrown temper tantrum or kicked a garbage can in exasperation. No, kick a garbage can? What's good's kicking a garbage can do for you, Hainsey said. Never. No, every game there's something you could have done better. That, after a game, is when I'm usually most annoyed. Then whenever you address it that night or the next day, move on and go to the next one. It's the best I can tell you. So annoyed is about as far as he'll go about the past, and it has left no mark, Hainsey said. I said earlier this year when this was brought up, I would have loved to have played 100 playoff games and have 3 Stanley Cups by now, but it's just not how it's worked out for me, he said. I don't think I've gone out there and sunk teams for 14 years previous to this year. It's just the teams the way they've gone. You go out hoping to play every game to win it, and at the end of the year, you add up the points and the top 16 get in, and the other guys don't. About the present, Hainsey doesn't care for the discussion about the playoffs this season. this opportunity to be in some kind of karma, and that he's paid more than his share of dues. If you're into that sort of thing, but not me, not really, he said. It's just do your part, see where it goes. Penguins assistant Jacques Martin pointed to the acquisition of Hainsey and veteran Mark Streit as critical for the Penguins in their quest to back-to-back cup titles. When you look at the trade deadline, shoring up our defense because of the injuries, we needed depth, Martin said. Trevor Daley was out, Chris Letang was out, and Chris never came back, so those acquisitions became a real key piece of our blue line. Hainsey, with 6 points in 21 playoff games, has played alongside Brian Dumoulin as a reliable top 4 pair for the Penguins. Each was a +2 in Game 1 of the final, same in Game 2. And I want to insert there, Dumoulin was originally a Carolina Hurricanes draft pick as well.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, he went
Brian Dumoulin?
He went to Pittsburgh as part of the Jordan Staal trade.
Oh.
Yep.
I didn't know that.
Yep, and he's also a native of the state of Maine too, Dumoulin. Hainsey played in 1953 in Game 1, 1950 in Game 2. It's a solid pair, and what Hainsey brings is experience and his skating ability is a big thing, Martin said. He's a mobile defenseman with long reach and big body. His skating has been a big plus and helped our blue line, our team. He can kill penalties. He's a key guy. He was a key guy in Carolina's defense core. He filled the role, and he's really stepped up and played our top 4. Hainsey may have had no playoff experience before this season, but he has been paying attention. He's watched games and series, he said, but spent little time contemplating what he'd been missing. A good question. Haven't really thought much about that, he said. Once you get into the series, they really take a life of their own. It's been a long time. I was fortunate in my early years to go to a Calder Cup Final with Hamilton in the American Hockey League in my second year, which isn't the same thing, but it's similar. You play into June. We lost that, unfortunately, in Game 7. A little, but you forget how a series kind of takes a life of its own, and it can go on for 2 weeks with ups and downs and little plays and little things that can change momentum. So I picked this article because obviously Ron Hainsey played a lot of time here in Carolina, and he was a major part of their defense here. And Carolina fans would agree with me on that they hated to lose him, but they knew that, given his age, I believe he's an upcoming free agent. That he was probably going to be the first guy to go, and he ultimately was at the trade deadline. But, as much as I want to see Nashville win the Cup in this series, if Pittsburgh wins, I'll be happy for Hainsey because he has played a very, very long time in the league, and this ultimately is his first time ever being in the playoffs. So he's having a hell of an experience for that.
Yeah, that's really good, Wayne. I see for his sake. I don't want the Penguins to win, but for his sake, I would like to see Ron Hainsey win too. That's a great article. That was great.
Yep.
I hope they do. I hope he does get a. I'll be watching the TV to see him hoist the cup.
Oh yeah, and I'm sure that picture will be front page news in Raleigh. Ron Hainsey gets his Stanley Cup.
Yeah.
Kind of like how Bork did, in Colorado back in, 2001, I think it was now? Yeah.
Oh, yeah, Ray Bork.
Yep.
Oh, gosh, Gary Thorne. And now all that was great. I was very happy to see that.
Yep.
And congratulations on your Bjork, because he's a great player. You Bruins fans got to be happy about that, man.
Yep. Certainly are. And, there was a lot of Bruins fans, a lot of the scuttlebutt that I was hearing in some of the other Bruins-related podcasts was that Anders Bjork had the potential of turning into another Jimmy Vesey situation.
Oh, wow.
Because had he decided to go back to school for his senior year, he plays out his senior year, and then all he has to do is just refuse to play until, July 1st?
Yeah.
August? When was it that?
It might have been August.
Yeah.
You might be right. Yeah.
So, and the Bruins could have lost him for nothing, the way Nashville lost.
But they didn't. He wanted to go to an organization where the jersey, putting it on, and winning the games and winning Stanley Cups matters. Mm-hmm. And they just like the Rangers. You wear that jersey, you want to win every game.
Yep.
And so I'm happy for the Bruins. Rangers fan. I'm happy for the Bruins. They got a good one there.
But I wonder if Jimmy Vesey's kicking himself watching the team that drafted him playing in the Stanley Cup Final right now. And he's not part of that team.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, well.
That's kind of the stuff you sign up for when you try to pick a team to win. So
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's all we have for this week.
Yeah, that was a good one.
Unless you have anything else to add.
No, but I thank you for letting me get my words in about the coach, and that's it. I appreciate it, Wayne. It's been a very good podcast.
No problem. But for next week, though, we've got things are really winding down. Next week might be a short one. We keep saying it might be a short one, but we always end up stretching them out. We've got to talk about games 3 and 4 of the Stanley Cup Final. We've got to talk about the American Hockey League Calder Cup Championship. That will be still going next week. The ECHL Championship will probably still be going next week. There'll probably be more transactions at this point. Probably some trades. I was hearing rumors of a trade with Vegas and Chicago earlier in the week that might be taking place, and I can't remember the details of it, but obviously that hasn't come to fruition as of yet that I know of. So we might see something there. But stay tuned for next week, and there'll be a lot more news stories, and hopefully we'll be coming back to a 2-2 series.
Yeah, that's gonna be neat.
So it'll either be a 2-2 series or it'll be probably 3-1. I doubt we'll be talking about the end of the season next week.
I agree.
You never know. I mean, who would have picked Chicago losing 4 straight to open the playoffs? But anyway. Okay, well, with that, we'll go ahead and end it. And until next week, we'll talk to you later. See you next week.
Have a good night.
You too.